Hello and welcome to Walker Tea Review. I'm Jason Walker with the Japanese green tea here, ready to start. Japanese green teas generally prefer a cooler temperature, so in order to get that temperature, I'm going to kind of use a general rule of thumb. I'm going to pour my water into a pitcher first. That's a pretty good amount to start with, and then we'll be able to decide. You'll see as I add this tea, the general rule is to be able to, if the pitcher or the ceramic, the clay vessel pitcher like this is is cool to the touch, then that's a safe, a pretty good guideline for right temperature for a tea, a more gentle Japanese green tea. Need to add just a little bit more. I've covered the bottom of my Kyusu pot here, but I added just half a scoop more, say a teaspoon more. That's still pretty hot to the touch, but it's close enough that I'm going to go ahead and add it anyway. You'll be able to find, you can use kind of the same general rule if you're ever uncertain as to what kind of temperatures to use and you don't have a thermometer close by, you don't want to get into that kind of level of precision. That's a good amount right there. That nearly fills my pot to the top. I'm going to add just a splash more. That looks good. Put the lid on, let that steep for a moment, and introduce this tea. This is from Aiya America. This is their OrganicSencha. You can find on Aiya America's website, you can find 80 grams available for $25.80. One of the interesting things about this particular tea is that it is USDA organic. Not all, many Japanese teas are JAS, the Japanese standard for organic. The USDA standards are somewhat more strict as far as fertilizer application, so that's kind of an extra hurdle that a lot of Japanese tea growers have to go through in order to get their teas to become USDA organic. Along with that, when you have that obstacle, that means that not all of the Japanese teas that are USDA organic necessarily meet overall quality standards for finer Japanese green teas like this Sencha. So that's a couple of things to consider when you look at them together. I'm going to go ahead and talk about this tea, the dry leaf, the wet leaf, and the liquor. Nice, first off, aromas here, nice, sweet, again, kind of a creamy, steamed zucchini, steamed green squash, or kind of a buttery cream spinach type of smell as well. So those are nice, sweet, green vegetable type of smells. A little bit of a mineral, metallic type of smell. I'm going to set this aside. I don't want to steep too long, so I'm going to go ahead and pour and then get back to the dry leaf. So I'm going to do, there's one. It can be helpful to kind of rock this back and forth because this screen here that prevents leaves from flowing through. By rocking it back, that kind of shifts the weight, the mass of wet leaves away, gives you a more even pour. It also helps to kind of shake out those last few drops. If you are using a Kyusu pot like this, and you're going to use these leaves, steep these leaves more than once, it helps to get all the liquor, the water out of it, so that these delicate leaves are not steeping in the remainder of the water that's resting in the bottom of the pot there. So that's helpful. We'll go ahead and I'll be able to talk about that wet leaf in just a moment, but I do want to continue here with the dry. Scooping out a few of these leaves. Again, this is a Sencha, and I do have finer needle type shaped, spindly looking leaf portions, fairly good size. Some of these may be intact leaves. Many of these will be, most of a leaf, but not all. Size-wise, an inch or more in length in many cases. deep emerald green looking in color. You do have some lighter colors here and there, but that's one of the more dominant colors is that deeper, more emerald green type. Yep, they're flat. I see a few that do have a bit of a sheen to them, once here and there. So that takes care of the dry leaf. I'm going to move on now. I've already poured my liquor, so I can now get into some of this wet leaf, see what has changed. Give that a shake a little bit and talk about this wet leaf here. Aromas have become a little bit more buttery, a little bit deeper heat notes. This is a deeper. I almost get a light kind of, a very faint kind of roasted chestnut type of nutty element there. Okay, let me scoop out a few of these leaves. I'm going to get a lid here that's white, so it kind of gives us a better background for that. Scoop out a few of these leaves here and just rest them on the lid. Like I was noticing in the dry leaf portions here, they've opened up and unfurled. You're going to see that they are fairly delicate. They're you're going to get a mass. It's going to be hard to really tease these apart. See a whole lot of be able to kind of distinguish leaf from leaf and really, because they're just sticking to everything every time you touch. They're sticking to your fingers and everything. Delicate leaf portions here, some resiliency to them, but definitely not tough, not leathery, not thick either. So yeah, I want to move on now and talk about the liquor. Set that to there and get to this liquor. Let me give that a swirl. Because of the time, the heat of the water, the time that allowed this to steep, gave it a lot of intensity. So you see a nice, deep, rich, yellow-green liquor there. Lots of elements, filaments from the leaf floating around in there. A light sweet, again, still kind of a gentle green vegetable type aroma coming off. Not as pronounced as say the original dry leaf with the more pronounced green squash or cream spinach type smells. Much lighter, almost like a boiled corn broth. It's moving a little bit more towards that direction in the liquor here. Let me give this a taste. A bit of a metallic element in the middle of my tongue there. Low bitterness. There is some astringency that gives a powdery feel more towards the front of the tongue. Makes the front half feel a little drier. The back half feels a little bit more powdery. Yet there's some sweetness from the aftertaste. Balances with that powdery kind of texture feeling on the top of the tongue and the back half of your tongue. So it gives it a kind of smooth, nearly cooling type of feeling. Definitely refreshing in that sense. The sweetness kind of curls and folds underneath the tongue there as well. Aftertaste is light. Again, it's got a little bit of a mineral, flinty type element. Green vegetable sweetness, a little bit more of that, a little bit more towards that steamed creamed spinach type of taste aspect going on in the back here. Just another shot, because as it cools, it may kind of fluctuate a little bit. yeah, the astringency hasn't varied very much. The bitterness, and there's still no bitterness to really stand out. The flinty aspect, the metallic aspect, also there too. As I swirl it in my mouth, that's where I was able to pick up, and as I swallowed, and just as I swallowed there's a bit more of the spinachy type aspect, the steamed zucchini type smell there, character coming out there. So as it cools, it seems to be picking up a bit more of that. Off-camera tastings, I recall getting a bit more of the sweet green vegetable aspect, the steamed zucchini, that aspect come out a bit more. But looking at this tea overall, I was expecting a bit more of a buttery creaminess to it. This one's got a bit more of the mineral, flinty, metallic note as character to it. Now, that's sought after with some Japanese green teas. Some people say that's the preferred aspect of the Japanese green tea for them. This one, the fact that it was steamed with a bit hotter water, longer temperature, a lot of bitterness didn't come out. The astringency stayed kind of in balance with the other aspects there. Speaks well for this tea, so I would give this tea a 90. So come back to Walker Tea Review to find those teas that balance well with all the components of it, and regardless of how much stress or strain that you put on that tea.